Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Jack Shelton, a lawyer at Aegis Space Law, and I'm here to answer your space law FAQs. Here's this week's question. We've recently heard of WRC23. What is it, and what impact will it have on us? Okay, so WRC23 is the World Radio Communication Conference, and it's held every 3 to 4 years, and right now it's happening in Dubai. I think it wraps up tomorrow, which is today's December 14th, so tomorrow's the 15th. If you're involved in the space industry much, you've probably heard of the ITU, which is the International Telecommunication Union. The ITU, in addition to the ITU Convention, has a constitution. So the ITU Convention and the Constitution are the two foundational documents of that organization. Article 4 of the Constitution provides that the ITU will maintain two separate sets of regs. One is the International Telecommunication Regs, and the other one is the Radio Regs. Both of these sets of regs are binding on all member states. The ITU Constitution and the Convention both empower a body called the Radio Regulations Board to maintain and update those regs. More specifically, Article 7 of the ITU Convention requires the Radio Regulations Board to hold a recurring World Radio Communication Conference. That's the WRC. The ITU Convention requires the board to set an agenda well in advance of each conference, and the agenda may include topics such as the revision of the radio regs and topics that the board should study. In the comments to this video, I've included a link to the agenda for the 2023 conference. The document is very long. It contains a whole bunch of already passed resolutions that are relevant to this current agenda, but the agenda itself is actually relatively short, and it's contained in pages 7 to 10 of the document that I've linked to. The agenda sets out about 30 different resolutions for the board to consider, and there are several agenda items that affect our clients, most of whom operate in LEO. I've picked one to look at, and it's at paragraph 1.17 of the agenda, and here's what it says. The board will determine and carry out, on the basis of ITU-R studies, in accordance with Resolution 773, the appropriate regulatory actions for the provision of inter-satellite links in specific frequency bands or portions thereof by adding an inter-satellite service allocation where appropriate. So, if you go to the agenda document that I've linked to, you'll see that there is a link within it to Resolution 773, and that was adopted at the last WRC in 2019. In Resolution 773, the board asks the ITU radio communications sector to study satellite-to-satellite transmissions in certain frequency bands, and then to develop technical conditions and regulatory provisions for satellite-to-satellite operations. Those frequency bands are 11.7 to 12.7 gigahertz, 18.1 to 18.6 gigahertz, 18.8 to 20.2 gigahertz, and 27.5 to 30 gigahertz. So, according to the agenda for WRC23, the ITU's Radio Regulations Board will look at the studies of satellite-to-satellite transmissions in those frequency bands, and they will recommend technical conditions and regulatory provisions for those communications. When WRC23 concludes, the Radio Regulations Board might make changes to the radio regs, which will be mandatory on the member states, and it also might make recommendations, which member states won't necessarily be obligated to implement, but which in practice they tend to implement. The regulatory impact of WRC23 is most likely to be felt in the medium to long term. If you're not participating in the WRC process, the documents themselves will not be publicly available until after the conference. However, you may be able to quickly discern what has been decided at a high level and determine whether the new recommendations or studies could have an impact on your operational or regulatory strategy. As specific recommendations become publicly available in early 2024, a closer review can help inform your next steps. And if you determine that any recommendations or amended regs could impact your company, it will be important to liaise with the FCC or the National Licensing Authority in your country to determine whether or when the developments will be implemented nationally and how you can address them in your applications or compliance docs. All right, that's it for this week's question. If you'd like to submit your questions for us to answer, just click the link in the comments below. And if you otherwise would like to chat with us, please reach out at hello@aegis.law and let us know you saw this video.